DiceScrapers. This is a simple filler, 2 players only, published by 15 Games. It comes in this bag here. And simply we're gonna build skyscrapers, placing dice on top of the other. The back of the bag is supposed to be your board. You're supposed to be building your skyscrapers here, but I do not recommend that you do it because the bag is just not very flat. And in this game, if you place a die on a skyscraper and you knock down a skyscraper, you lose the game immediately. So losing the game just because this one or this one don't lay flat, it's really annoying. So what I simply recommend to do is you and your opponent are just gonna agree that you're gonna have 4 areas where you build your 4 skyscrapers, and that's it. You have this set of dice. One player will be playing with dark dice, with black dice, one player with gray dice. At the beginning of each round, you roll 3 black dice and 3 green dice. Then when it is your turn, you're gonna take a die, doesn't matter if it's yours or your opponent's color, and you're gonna place it on one of the skyscrapers. So if a skyscraper hasn't been started yet, you can start it. Oh, right now we have all 4 skyscrapers, so whatever happens next needs to be added to those. So you can start a new skyscraper if there's still a place available, or you can add to one. To add to a skyscraper, the number on the die that you're placing needs to be 1 higher or 1 lower than the number you're adding to. So for example, 2 and 4, they're both legal to add to this one. The 4 I could add to this one. The 2 I could add to that one that has a 1. This is a 6, and so I cannot add either of them. Suppose I decide to add this one here, and then my opponent, because remember every time you need to add a die, adds that one. And that ends this round, and so we're gonna start the new one with, again, 3 dice per color. And 6 I can place on top of the 1 as a circular thing. 6 and 1 are adjacent, so actually then the other player does this. We're gonna add the 5 to a 4, a 3 to a 2, a 2 to a 3, and a 1. Oh, this is going very smoothly. Of course, you're wondering what happens if you cannot add a die. Thank you very much for asking. If you cannot add a die, then you simply re-roll all of the dice that have not been placed yet. 6 and 5. 6, we're gonna add it here. Look at this, this is amazing. There was a 1. First time, then I had to re-roll anything. Oh, that's getting wobbly. So this is how it works. Players alternate taking dice from the pool, even if it's not their dice. And actually there may be important incentives in not placing your die, messing up with other people. For example, right now we have a 6, a 3, and a 1. We cannot place the 3. And we have a 6, which we can place here. And that's the end of the game. The game ends once you have placed all of the dice, and then you score each skyscraper separately. For each skyscraper, there is a point for the player that has the die on top, a point for the player that has majority, unless there's a tie, and a point for each pair of dice that are next to each other. So for example, play with the black dice will score 1 point for those 2 there next to each other. Gray player scores a point for this and a point for this here. Black dice scores a point there. You total the points from all sources. The player with the most points wins the game. There you go, perfect. A die just fell. And that's the basic game. Then you have the advanced game in which you shuffle these tiles and you deal out 4 of them randomly, or you can also just decide with your opponent which of these tiles you're gonna do. And they all change the rules in some way. This one, for example, allows you to build 2 skyscrapers next to each other, so there's also that extra dexterity element. This one, each pair of dice next to each other is worth 2 points instead of 1. With this tile, once you can demonstrate that you could add a tile to that skyscraper or dice scraper, you re-roll it. and then you place it. So actually there's going to be a random number on top. This one, in order to be able to add to that one, you need to select and place 2 dice at the same time. Like in this case, 1 and 2, that could be the case. This one simply means no skyscraper there. So 1 fewer skyscraper, there's another copy of this one, and another copy of this one. And this one simply tells us that whoever has majority in that dice scraper there scores 2 points instead of 1 for that dice scraper. And this is how you play the game. Dice Scrapers may be a simple, very light 2-player game that you play in 10 minutes or less, but it gets the job done. As a game in that category, it's quite remarkable. I played it only with my daughter Amelia. These days I don't have game night. I play with my family. She's now 9 now, so that tells you that you can play it with a child. And she loved it, and I also enjoyed it very much, but she became so addicted. She kept wanting to play it. First we played the basic version without the tiles, and she enjoyed it already, and she was like, I don't need anything more, don't make it more complicated, Dad, why do you always wanna? And then I convinced her to try with the tiles, and we couldn't go back to the basic version. Actually, she started to say, okay, let's try again, but these are the tiles. And each game, she experimented with different tiles, with different abilities, and we kept playing for hours, and that was beautiful. So really enjoyable 2-player game that you can play with children, with your spouse, if your spouse is not a hardcore gamer. Because it has a lot of nice, interesting touches here. Of course, there are dice. Of course, there is a luck element. Of course, there will be moments where you're forced to make a move that is stupid, meaning doesn't pursue your objectives, does not advance your chances of winning the game. But then the opponent will have a similar situation. And overall, it seems to me the gameplay still pays off. Good gameplay, good decision making, pushing your luck, and, well, see where it goes. Still makes the game, or still gives the game, a meritocratic element. I didn't think it was just, why don't you just roll dice, see who rolls the most, and done. The decisions that we made felt interesting. The dexterity element that felt a little bit extraneous when I read the rule book, but actually it works, because maybe you do have a nice placement that will give you majority and the die on top, and maybe a pair of adjacent dice on the single tallest stack. And then there is an element of risk there. You're gonna do it or not. We still haven't seen a single tower topple. We still haven't seen a game ending because a player loses because they make a tower fall. But the threat that may happen, that is enough to make the game and to give the game that extra elements there of dexterity. But then the main thing, of course, is pushing your luck and dice placement. And there are a couple of interesting things that you can do, of course. When multiple dice are there, you can try to break a pair that you would otherwise be able to connect. So instead of putting it there, it will be good for you, I put it somewhere else. But that's not a no-brainer, because then where I'm putting it, I need to be sure that by placing your die somewhere else is not even better for you. I'm not giving you majority, I'm not giving you the die on top, and so on and so forth. Again, there is a luck element when you reroll dice, and whatever you get is what you get, and you don't get upset. But other than that, when the first batch of dice is rolled, usually you have a couple of interesting decisions. 3, 4, sometimes 5 dice out of those 6 can be placed because of relevant decisions that the players can make, and the last one is rerolled, and we see what happens. For a game this minimalistic, I was pretty impressed. I really had a good time playing Dice Scrapers with my daughter. I think this is a game that has enough sophistication, enough elements of interest that I could play it a game night with my adult friends. As a filler, a friend shows up early before the main game night starts. We used to do those things before the pandemic, and we will again after the pandemic, just not now. But in general, Dice Scrapers, very simple, very basic, so to speak, but with interesting gameplay, with great variety, because different tiles do give you very different situations. So good value for your money, because you have a game without a replay value, but most importantly, you have a game with play value, meaning a game that is a good game and it's fun to play.